Hello, all, and welcome to the Fantasy and Sci-Fi Fanatics podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Coolbaugh. Today, I have me a very special guest, DB Rook. DB, how are you doing today?
Doing good, thank you. Thank you for the invite.
Thank you so much for coming on. Yeah, I've been trying to get you on for a while, and my schedule just always seems to blow up at the point where I'm trying to get you on. So I'm so glad that my schedule could go the other way this week. And this weekend we can get you on.
Yeah.
So
There's a couple of you
guys there's a couple of you guys on my notes that I'm just like, you need to figure this out, Dan. So I'm glad I can cross you and a couple people this weekend and this week, which is really exciting for me, off my list. You're big fish, as I like to call you guys. So I'm so glad that we could get you on. And you've been so active in my podcast group over the last couple of years. So I'm so happy anytime I can get one of you, on and, just try and get more eyes on your guys' products. It just feels really good. So thank you so much for coming on and sharing your writing experience with us.
Pleasure is absolutely mine. And in terms of sharing on the group, it's just what it's all about, isn't it? Let's face it, we all need to help each other. And as soon as you popped up, I was like, yes, I'm there. I'm yours.
Well, I love it. It's almost like, it's funny because like every once in a while, my son will watch something on YouTube on the TV, and I just love on our bigger screen in our living room, and I'll just kind of every once in a while when I get really tired or it's hard to get questions out or stuff edited, I'll just like literally go through, and it just feels really good to see everybody's different thumbnail, and like to see your guys' author picks and the books, and it actually makes it more tangible, I guess, sometimes rather than just the emails and stuff. And it's crazy. I'll go through and I'll see somebody's I haven't talked to, on here in a while, but I'll talk to them on social media or something. Like Carissa Broadbent I had on season 1, and she's blown up, and it just feels really good. Maybe it's the teacher in me. I don't know. But I like and Maurice Africh on this past season, and then he just got his traditionally signed contract. So that was like super cool. He's working on book 2. So it's always cool to kind of get in with you guys at a certain point, and then just to kind of let time go by, a little, and see what cool products and things and experiences you guys have had. It's kind of like a little video diary, if you will. So it's always cool to get somebody new on and chat. So
yeah, absolutely.
All right, my friend. Well, we're going to start there with one of the first questions, and that was actually given to me by a guest in season 1. So, what has your writing journey been like up until this point?
My writing journey. Okay, so I guess many years ago I started writing very generic fantasy, just kind of emulating my heroes, the sort of Remedy Feist, the Robin Hobb, who I absolutely adore still. But back then I was kind of writing to mimic them rather than trying to find my own groove, sort of thing. So I never really finished a project. I wrote several sort of 3/4 of novels, didn't really know what I was doing, and then along came the news that I was going to become a dad, and I guess I had to shape my life, and I had to get rid of a few hobbies, and I had to decide what I was going to take with me into the next scary chapter. I had to have a serious conversation whether writing was a fun hobby or whether I was going to really seriously go at it. So it made the cut, and I thought, right, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do it properly. I'm gonna put a lot of energy in. I'm gonna learn the craft rather than just kind of messing about. And I thought, what I also need to do is not copy my heroes and write my own stuff, find my own voice. So that was the start of my journey, really. Yeah, I decided to still write in fantasy and still write sci-fi and still sort of try and bring the influences, but do my own thing and not try and copy anyone else. And I guess that was the start of the next chapter, and that's what I've done ever since.
That's awesome. I know I've been stuck in that rut too. Like I just got them reorganized the other day. So these are like almost 3 full novels here within each one. So I know I had trouble finishing. I have a couple of other trunk novels that just I need to go back through, and rework, but good ideas there. I know for me, I struggle to finish one thing, and I'm kind of curious because I know the advice that was given to me, and I know the advice I took, and I've talked about it in here before. People have seen, but what do you think? Like one piece of advice or just general advice you would give somebody who is having trouble finishing that one thing? Just to kind of, get on that first rung or that first step, so to speak. What's like one piece of advice you can give them in terms of like finishing, like whether it's a short story, a novella, novel, anything like that?
I guess I'm not sure if this is a very proactive bit of advice, but I was told very early on that if you are kind of thinking of a new idea and you're being lured into another idea and you've got to finish the project you're on, either you bat it off and you carry on and you nail it, or you go and write that other thing. Because the juicy bit of advice is that if you're writing something that you're not inspired to write, you're just getting it done to get the words down, and it's a bit dull and it's a bit uninspired, your reader will know that.
Yeah.
So I guess, yeah, you don't want to just force yourself to get the words down if it's not going to be any good. So if
Yeah.
it's something you can nip off and write something else just to kind of give you a bit of a zing and then come back, and it's a better product in the end, I would suggest do that. I mean, I'm indie, so I don't have publishers breathing down my neck or timelines or any of that. So it's easy for me to
Yeah.
say. But
Yep.
yeah, that's exactly what I did with Residuum, my recent sci-fi novella. I kind of just wanted to go and write something else and shake a few different muscles and come
Yeah.
back. And I think it's worked out well in the end.
That's cool. Well, I know like somebody on here had told me like season one, and they're like I have a project. I can't remember who it was, and I've talked to so many authors, but like it was great advice. I always talk about it. I'm sure I could go back in my notes, right, or somewhere and find. But like they were like, I have a thing that I'm always working on as my main thing, and then they're like, if I'm looking at the new thing, I only allow myself to start outlining or maybe writing at times the rough draft of this thing. Like I'm editing right now my novella, so I have like my novella, and then I'm working on a 10K short story for an anthology project. And then once I'm done, I'll go back. And I gotta say, like, and then they were like, and I also have like just a fun thing that I'll just screw around with every once in a while just to get the ideas down. And they were like, it kind of goes back into my main one. So that's like personally what I find helps me, because if I just focus on one thing, sometimes I get bored or I just need to get the juices flowing. And for me, that like has really helped. But yeah, I think like what you were saying, like kind of like finding what works for you, right? And if some people I know have to focus on the one thing, otherwise it never gets done. But then other people need to go back and do this and then go there. It's like interesting, right? Yeah.
And there's
But I think any advice is good
other
advice.
bits of work to do. So there's the actual writing, but then there's all the scaffolding that you need to put around that writing and the formatting and editing, and the more sort of nuts and bolts stuff. By all means, go and get that done. But keep the creativity where you want to put it.
Yeah. Oh, that's a great way to put it. We have to make that a T-shirt. That's awesome. I know, you talked a little bit about genre. Do you mind telling us specifically what genre or subgenres you currently write in and why?
I mean, that's a harder question than you think. So
I like talking about it though. You're so true. So right.
So Callous and Crow, which is the first book of the Wayward World Chronicles, it's Western post-apocalyptic. It's been called quite unique. It is fairly unique. Obviously, nothing is entirely unique, but it's fantasy. It's steampunk. It's a bit of horror. I guess it's a bit of sci-fi and everything in between. But I consider it fantasy. I mean, it is fantasy. It's my own concept. It's my own creation. The world is its own thing, but it's based on some kind of reality that we might understand or might not. So yeah, it's always been quite difficult to define that. And again, that's probably why I went and wrote a pretty straight up fun sci-fi novella, because that was easy. Just go and have this fun adventure in space, just to kind of clear my sort of hard drive out a little bit and go back to the more difficult series. But I do love it, and yeah, I'm very close to getting the next book out, and
Awesome.
I'm very much in that world at the minute. I'm loving every minute of it.
No, that's cool. But you do bring up a good point. I've talked about this for many years on here, where if you go to find the golden compass, right, you can find it in young adult. You can find it in fantasy, science fiction, like new age, like you name it, right? Like you can find it anywhere. You can find it in the classics section. So for a book that's sold so many copies just for book one, let alone all of the series, sometimes I always use that as a prime example of like people will just ask for it, right, and they'll find it. So like people always like, I always like to say, like, for like genre, like I like to do kind of like historical urban fantasy, as I'm calling it, because I have my urban fantasy world, but I love history. I'm a history teacher, so I'll do
Right.
some stuff like prequels, right? So my monster hunting crew, you can find out how they were here in ancient times and then all the way up, or
Yeah.
there'll be
Yeah.
like another crew, and they're just like D&D historical urban fantasy adventures, because that's
Yeah.
what I love, right? And it's
Yeah.
like really cool. So I think genre at times like really holds you back, right? Like I
Yeah.
know people need to know, but when you're saying these things to me, and like it's like Clayton Snyder's Cold West, that was one of the best
Yeah.
books I've ever read, right? And
Yeah.
yeah, so that's like somebody said that to me the other day, because I always plug that, and they're like, "Well, if you haven't had DB Rook on here yet," they're like, "So Dan, you can't talk about Cold West anymore until you get hit with Callus and Crow." I'm like, "Fair, touche." So that was
Nice.
also what spurred me being like, "I got to get you on here." But yeah, I think it's interesting because like what you're saying and how some people have described Callus and Crow within different book groups and things like that on Facebook, and they each have described it in a different way right after they've read it, but no matter what they describe, it still makes me want to read it. It still makes me
Nice. That's
interested.
good.
So I don't know, genre, who knows, right? I always ask that just so people
Yeah.
know, but it's like, yeah, it gets kind of interesting. I always love when someone
It's
like
got
you
to sit
answers it that
somewhere.
way.
It's got to be on our shelf somewhere. But yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll tell you, back there, there's no order. I just throw them in however.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's crazy. I'll find them too. But yeah, so I always think it's interesting because people, I always call it the Journeyman's podcast. I got people that are maybe about to publish their first book, have published three. Had some people that were talking to me that have published like 60. I'm like, what are you doing watching me? But it was interesting. But they like to hear that whole breadth, like I do, right? Of what
Yeah.
people are doing. But I think it's interesting to have people think about genre, right? But also maybe to unlearn that type of form. Maybe it's the
Yeah.
martial artist in me.
Yeah. It's there, but you can't break any rules until you know what the rules are.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
that's
that's a
kind of
great way to
how.
put it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. All right. Well, DB, this is like going to be one of my favorite questions to ask you. And I love it when people come on here. This is really the question that keeps me going. So, what are your Wayward World Chronicles about, and how'd you come up with this idea?
Okay, the Wayward World Chronicles. As I say, it's post-apocalyptic. It's the first book is very Western because that's where the story starts. It
Mm,
doesn't necessarily remain Western all the way through.
mm,
It's so the concept of the world is that after some kind of post-apocalyptic event, the world shifted and changed. The sea, the sea became full of giant predatory fauna, so people can't cross the sea. So you've kind
mm,
of got different continents, different countries, all kind of arising from a post-apocalyptic event, figuring out based on what they've found of the past, so the popular
mm,
media of the past and things that remnants of what they've sort of dug out of the ashes, and they believe that that's their history.
mm,
So you've got like a Western sort of side to the world where they thought their history is cowboy and Western, so they mimic that and they sort of started
mm,
growing, and technology and science kind of did that thing in that part of the world. But because they can't cross the sea, they don't know what's happening on another continent, and that continent's growing. They've found whatever they've found, and they're becoming that. Nobody knows what each part of this emerging world is doing until the era that Callus and Crow is set in, when somebody figures out how to cross the sea.
mm,
So effectively, you've got a Western story that finds its way to a new world and clashes with all the culture and the science and the magic and all the other wonderful ingredients of other places. So that is the sort of melting pot of the world. The story within that world is a kind of father and son journey of revenge and redemption. So Callus is he's never mentioned that he's a vampire, but he's
mm,
had this kind of curse that's left him with a need to feed on human blood.
mm,
He dies every night, so he gets buried and he dies and he's rejuvenated. He's essentially a vampire, but he would never describe it as that.
mm,
And he meets a young boy called Crow, and they go off on this kind of sort of continent spanning journey of revenge and redemption, where Callus's curse has the potential to spread into Crow. So it's
Mm.
my curse is very much like a drug addiction. So it's more akin to a heroin addiction than it is a sort of Twilight vampire.
Mm.
And the whole sort of journey is Callus trying to take this young man under his wing without sharing his curse.
Mm.
And they go on this kind of this very long odyssey that goes in very different directions, but that is the aim, to find redemption, to find revenge, but to not ruin each other on the way. So it's very much a father and son going on a journey and caring about each other, really caring about the
Mm.
people that they come across, trying to save the world, trying to do things right, but the world itself is in this kind of conflicting sort of sphere of everybody trying to do what they do and
Yeah.
trying to stop them from succeeding.
Wow. Wow. That's pretty cool. That's a deep theme there, I think. Like,
There's a lot of ingredients. Yeah, possibly
yeah,
too many ingredients for a first book of a series.
that's
But
cool.
yeah.
That's cool. Well, I could definitely see where, like, yeah, like there was like a viewer or a listener recently that I think just like started with this podcast and stuff. So that was another person that had actually like commented. I don't think it was in the group. I think it was like on my maybe like Instagram or something. And I had said something about the podcast or books or whatever. I just needed something new. And they were like, "Have you read?" Yeah, they're like, "Have you read Callus and Crow yet?" Like, no, it's literally on my list. I'm a season behind, as I say for my podcast, and I'm getting caught up like probably midway through the summer, and then I'll be like on this season's list. So I'm really excited for that. But yeah, it was just funny to me because I was thinking about it as I went back through your blurb and stuff, and like that actually makes me think about it even deeper with that theme because like that's just like me in a nutshell because like I have a thyroid disorder and I
Okay.
didn't know about it till like way later. Completely changed my life, and now I'm like a lot better, but it took years to like get re-regulated. And
Yeah.
talk about a curse, man. I do not want my son to have that at
Yeah.
all, and
Yeah.
statistically speaking it's pretty low for him, but yeah, like we found out like
It's there.
extended
Yeah.
family and stuff. Yeah, so
Yeah.
for me like that's really deep because that's like every time I go to the doctor I'm like, oh, please tell me, and it's probably going to be
Yeah.
like a later on in life sort of thing that he'll find out like I did. But at least I know, so I can kind of help
Yeah.
to, but man, yeah, that's a deep theme for me. Like, or I think
Nice.
like any parent, right? You just don't like, even
Yeah.
if it's not physical, right? Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
Wow,
even
that's really
even
cool.
if it's anger issues or kind
Yeah.
of frustration, you don't want to pass it on. You don't want to pass on
Yep.
fears or anything. But you have also got to be a human and do you.
Yeah, TikTok like knew I was struggling like last week, man, and it was like I must have liked one video or something with like some dad was talking about stuff, and they just like sent me a bunch of dad motivational
Yeah.
stuff, and I was like,
Yeah.
normally I'm like whatever algorithm, but I was like I just needed it last week because yeah,
Yeah.
we were just having like a week at work and yeah, with the little one and stuff, and yeah, and
Oh
I
yeah.
saw one dude said this one thing, and it was like 5 lines. I was like, holy moly, like yeah,
Yeah.
so yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good theme right there. That's awesome. Well. Now, in terms of your Darkening Dawn novella for Residium, I absolutely loved when I saw you first like came out with that. I was like, this cover is amazing. This sounds awesome. But why should readers pick it up today? I know why I'm picking it up, but why should they pick it up today?
So Residuum, as I say, Residuum is a bit more of a. It's got less ingredients than perhaps than the Wayward Will. It's a bit of a stray. It's got deeper themes, so it's essentially it's about if AI in a far-flung future, space travel, that sort of universe, AI basically tries to mimic what humans would consider karma and judgment.
Mm,
So it's kind of like a robot genocide, but kind
mm,
of it's got a human element to it. So they are judging people and eradicating those that aren't worthy. They're not just
mm,
wiping out the rest of the human race. They're trying to do what we thought karma was. They've basically got it wrong, and they've tried to, like we see now with AI. You try and say, you ask AI to draw a person, and it's got 7 fingers. There's like,
yeah.
it's got some kind of intelligence, but it's not human intelligence. So they go the machines go on this kind of judgment kind of journey to make humanity, the rest of humanity, better, but actually they
Mm.
just end up wiping out hundreds and thousands of human beings.
Wow.
So I mean, obviously it's quite a deep theme, but the book is also quite fun. So it's kind of space pirates, found family.
Mhm.
There's a crew that is not unlike the crew of Firefly, that kind of thing. So they pick up a survivor from one of these kind of genocidal like attacks and get embroiled in some kind of plot to it's always difficult to not
I
stand
know.
in any sort of plot. They get a chance to try and make a difference. Let's put it that way, and they do so, in a very fun kind of very. It's a very ragtag crew. The interactions are hopefully very enjoyable. Some of the characters people already really love. I loved writing them. Um, so the plot is there, but actually come for the pirates and the banter and the enjoyment. And yeah, it's only a novella. It's quite short. There's going to be more in that universe,
Oh, cool.
but yeah, that's absolutely the plan. That there's going to be a series of novellas.
Oh, that's awesome.
Um,
Somebody
yeah.
wanted me to ask you that, so I'm glad that was my next follow up. They're like, "Can you ask this for me?" I was like, "I will definitely ask that." I was like, "I think that's a great question." That's super
Yeah,
cool.
I mean, obviously, there's books and books ahead in my mind that I intend
Yeah,
to
yeah.
write. So I don't know what order I will do that in, but definitely there will be more.
For somebody like me, it seems like I blink and then like the book comes out, and it could be like 3 years. I don't even
Yeah,
notice.
yeah,
I feel like there's just so much going on and so much out there to yeah to like like James Logan's like the like the Blackfire Blade or whatever book
yeah,
two, and I had him on and I loved book one, and I just like was so looking forward to book two, and then work just slammed me, so I have barely
yeah,
gotten to read besides my
yeah,
book club book with my buddies. So that's like I'm like really hoping this summer I can get caught up on some good
yeah.
stuff. But
I've
yeah,
been
somebody
doing
wanted
a
me to
lot more.
ask you, so I'm glad you said that.
Yeah, it's also my first audiobook because during the
Oh,
last couple of
cool.
years I've got a lot more into audio because just the same, I don't have time to read, and if I do, it's
Yeah, yeah.
generally late at night. I've got old man eyes. I just can't do it. So I'm listening to a lot of stuff these days, and that's how I'm getting books finished.
Yeah, yeah. That's what I have to do for writing too. Like I'm writing after work now. I have like a smaller slot, and it's just so much easier to get done with work, close my office door, and once my time's done, I just like float on there, or I'll come
Yeah,
home real quick before my little guy gets home, and before like my tutoring session or something, I'll just like float. But like yeah, if I like write, I used to write late at night. Now it's like really hard for me. So I've
yeah,
had, but like reading too, like I can listen to an audiobook past
yeah,
like 9, but usually I have to read before that. So
yeah,
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 it's
definitely.
interesting how things change, right? Over
Yeah.
time. But yeah, that's super cool. So in terms of like for this science fiction novella though, and like were there any like specific examples of, things that you were like, I really want to do this for the world building, or, did you have any like sort of inspirations in how you did the world building, or did you just kind of think, oh, I want to do some of these things for a while and I'm going to do them here?
Um. So I've had some kind of outlining
Hmm.
universe space opera type thing
Oh,
in
cool.
mind, and I always knew at some point I would go and flesh that out.
Hmm.
And then, as I've already said, like ideas are constantly bombarding me, and I started thinking about writing a zombie story, a zombie kind of
Oh,
zombie apocalypse, and I nothing against the people that have written good zombie stories, but I kind of felt that idea was too generic for me, so I needed
yeah,
a
yeah.
different kind of enemy, and
Yeah,
and
yeah,
I
yeah.
needed it to be not as clear cut as good guy, bad guy. There are millions of bad guys. They shamble. The good guys escaped. I needed to have a little bit of ambiguity around what is good and evil, that kind of thing. So yeah, it started off zombie, ended up being robots, and then I already had this kind of universe sketched out. So I've
Mm.
just put it as an episode in that universe and thought with the other ideas I've got for that universe, I can still write in other books because it's a whole massive universe. I can
Yeah,
write
yeah.
one little story, I can write another story, the other side of that galaxy that won't even affect this one if I need to.
Yeah,
So I
yeah,
just
yeah.
kind of thought, just throw it out there, have a bit of fun. Because Callus and Crow is a very it's got a very specific format to it. So it's kind of epistolary. There's lots of sort of news cuttings and lots of bits in italics and things like that that flesh out the world in that series, and that's quite an intense process to write. So after I finished the Cows and Crow, I just thought I just need something a little bit more straightforward, and I've got this kind of world, and that did the trick. And
Yeah.
like I said before, it did actually really get it out of my system. So when I went back to the Wayward
Yep.
World, the second book, I've been really productive. As soon as I finished Residuum, I've been so productive, it's unreal.
Yeah, yeah. That's like my 10K story. It's like it's gonna be like before my book one for my urban fantasy Monster Hunter. It'll be like an adventure in like a 2 year gap. And it's like my novellas here. I got a couple stories this year. I got like two that will definitely be in between like the book one. But it's like it's the same character, right? But it's a different spot and different things are
Yeah,
happening. And yeah, just like my friend was like, "Man, you're like just going." I was like, "I'm just not stuck on this problem anymore, and I can just
yeah,
write for once and not
yeah,
edit this stupid problem that I created for myself." So, and it's
yeah,
like pulling that thread apart. But yeah, I totally get it. Yeah, it's nice sometimes just to let your mind flow on something different. And I always
yeah,
talk about like it's not like running or working out, right? Like sometimes you just need that rest to recover. And I think I'm
yeah,
getting a little bit better personally on discovering like when I'm blocked or when I'm not, it's not quite flowing, right? There's like a reason. And I'm starting to give
yeah,
myself a little bit more time, whether it's a day or two, or maybe even a week sometimes. I'll go work on something else and come back, and all of a sudden it's like, haha. And it's like, oh,
yeah,
I needed time to subconsciously work out that
yeah,
problem. So,
yeah,
but it's
absolutely.
hard to know what you need to do sometimes, right?
Yeah, until you step
Yeah.
back. So I
Yeah.
recently was on a panel about writer's block, and I kind of
Oh, cool.
traditionally don't get writer's block, but I
Yeah.
do get kind of scene block.
Yeah.
So
That's my problem. Yep.
yeah, I'm not
Yep.
scared of a blank page at all. I eat that up. I love it. But what I don't like is there's a scene that's just not sitting well, and I don't know how
Yep.
to move past it. And then you start to build up more and more pressure around it, and you need to do X, Y, and Z, but you can't do X, Y, and Z. So it just becomes this like blockage, and that's the
Yep.
thing. And the way I've found to fix it is either just write nonsense and edit it, or go away and yeah, think of a different perspective to take that scene from.
Yeah, yeah. I had one where it's like for my 10K where it's like it's just so I feel so silly now. I had a thing I thought was really important and I realized it was fluff. And the reason I did that I wrote and then I just like let it sit. So I was like I'm just gonna garbage it, because
Yeah,
I just write those types of things fast and then I have more time I think to think rather than feel bad about not writing. But then it was like I was at the gym yesterday and I was on the elliptical for like 5 minutes. I thought that was so stupid. I'm like that's not the right scene. Like I had the right scene with these two characters, but not in the right place, and the right
yeah,
things weren't happening. And all of a sudden, it was like, oh, this is going to be. I'm gonna have to redo this chapter, but it's gonna be so much cooler. So yeah,
yeah,
sometimes
yeah.
I always like, yeah, people are like, are you don't have trouble with a blank screen? I'm like, not anymore, but I used to. But yeah,
Mhm.
now that's a good way to put it. I got scene blockage, or,
Yeah,
or amnesia.
yeah,
Sometimes it feels like that's great
yeah,
advice right
absolutely.
there.
For me,
That's
it's
awesome.
always about walking the dog. So I'll write and I'll write and
Mm,
write, and I get stuck. So then I go and walk the dog. And while I'm walking the dog, I don't really have any ability to write anything.
yeah,
I
yeah.
could sort of put notes in my phone, but my hands are tied with a dog, so I can't. So all I've got is my brain going, and that usually, by the time I've walked around the block, I've kind of figured out the new way.
Mine's always I hate winter, but shoveling snow here, like like
Mm.
global
Yeah,
warming, it's not as consistent as it used to be, but now it'll just dump. So there's some days I'll be out there for like an hour, hour and a half, just
yeah,
with the driveway or something. But yeah, my son's like that where I'll take a break and he'll want to go do something, so we'll go to the park or like
yeah,
earlier I was like, oh, like we were walking and picking up rocks in the rain and stuff, and then all of a sudden it was like, haha, that thing you have to do later. This
true.
is how you should do it. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
So I
absolutely.
think
Yeah,
moving sometimes just helps me, like even if it like you're saying, like, if it is just walking and
yeah,
yeah, even if I just have to put my phone away for a few and not even take the notes, but then have to put some
yeah,
later. Yeah,
yeah,
I
yeah,
think yeah, getting the blood flowing for me always does something. Sometimes
yeah,
fresh air is just good. So
yeah,
I think that's
absolutely.
really
Yeah,
good advice. All right. So what are your Shadows of the Collegiate books about, and how do you plan on, or sorry, stories about, and do you plan on writing more of these short stories? I thought that was really cool product.
yeah. So we've talked a lot about genre.
Yeah.
So almost the Shadows of the Collegiate stories are all connected by the collegiate, which is a place. It's kind of in one era it's a university, in another era
Mm,
it's kind of a seat of power.
mm.
The whole idea is that that's the thing that connects the whole series, but
Oh, that's
not
cool.
necessarily in the same timeline. Like, there's no reason I can't do space and they land on a planet and they find their way to the collegiate.
Oh, that's
It's
cool.
so far it's more classic sort of dark fantasy, medieval type stuff. But the whole idea was that that is the backbone for going anywhere I want,
Mm,
and it's kind of a
smart.
chance for me to write the more sort of grimdark fantasy stuff that
Mm,
I like to write and like to read, but I don't necessarily want to write a whole series of it because there's a lot of people doing that stuff and I'm doing other stuff.
yeah,
So
yeah.
I wouldn't say it's a dumping ground because I love it, but it's somewhere to put the bits that don't really fit into any other world.
It's cool.
And the idea is, yeah, to write more. There's a few more already written that aren't sort of
Mm.
available, and I've also got a couple of other authors who are writing stories in that world. So I
Oh, that's
will
cool.
put together. I mean, it's not an anthology because it's kind of. I guess it kind of is, but it'll be a collection of short stories, all that revolve around this place,
Oh,
and
that's cool.
anything goes. So
Yeah.
hopefully that book will be interesting, and it'll be have a lot of variety in it.
Mm. Well, that's super cool. And we're so like you just like we're kind of thinking one day, oh, I have one of these types of stories I want to tell, but it doesn't really quite fit here. How'd you come up
Yeah.
with like the collegiate itself though, being like the same thing that is consistent?
Um, I don't know if there was a bit of influence from the Dark Tower, maybe that
Oh,
kind
yeah,
of, what I mean, like that kind of
yeah,
central thing that holds it all together, but
yeah, yeah.
actually it's different dimensions or different worlds.
That's cool.
Because I was writing Callus and Crow, and a lot of people mentioned that there was certain elements of Dark Tower, or at least
Mm,
the first book of Dark Tower. So that was obviously in my psyche somewhere.
yeah,
Yeah, and I didn't want to create a series that backs me into a corner. I wanted to create something where I can write whatever I feel like and somehow manage to fit it into this universe.
yeah. Well, I think that's really smart. I was like struggling with I got like a sci-fi story where it's like a D&D party with like a human, but then the rest of it's like aliens, like a Firefly crew, but only one human or two humans, sorry. And then I was like, oh, this is really neat. But like, I just kept coming up to, I have like a Men in Black type thing,
Yeah,
but I wanted to have it in my urban fantasy world. And a couple weeks ago, I was like, wait, why don't I just do that? And because I was like, now I can have everything in this world I built. And I have certain science fiction elements in my urban fantasy, which people I think have found pretty cool that I've read it so far.
yeah,
And then it kind of expands, and all of a sudden, for me, these two Men in Black like characters, opening up urban fantasy elements became super cool because now it's like they could fight an interdimensional being, they could
yeah,
fight a sorcerer, like yeah. So it's like for me, that's like what it was. Is I was like, oh, now I'm gonna have some fun, right? Because
yeah,
now I have everybody in like one thing. So I totally
yeah,
get that. It's just really frees you up, right, to just
yeah.
be as creative as you want. So
And
I think
you
that's
want
really
to
cool.
write what you want to read, and I
Yeah,
like a lot of different things, and I would love
yeah,
to read this and that all in the same story, as long as it was, credible and not just kind of thrown in for no reason. As long as it works, that's
yeah,
what I
yeah.
like to read. So yeah,
Well, I mean, it's like the original like time Twilight Zone, where it's
yeah,
like has that like common theme, but they kind of, I mean, they did so much with that, right?
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
or Tales of the Crypt, like the
yeah,
original, those kind of things. X-Files, I think, is a great example, right? Where it's
yeah,
like they're able to do that. I'm really excited for the new one. I think it's going to be neat. I hope they add to the universe and not like make it new. I think it'd be cool if
yeah,
even if they
yeah,
make an appearance or talk about them just to build. I think that would be
yeah.
absolutely incredible. So.
I think they'll have to because that it's the kind of old fan base that make it possible. So they've got to make them
Yeah.
happy.
Yep. Yeah, because like if they can do that for me, I'm like, holy moly! Like, I think that'd be really, really like that's like I like, and you said Firefly, and I know some people were bummed about it being like animated and stuff. Like,
Yeah,
I'm actually just excited to get more to the world because like when the
yeah,
novels came and the graphic novels, like I don't think a lot of people have expanded into those quite as much as they should because there's just such
yeah,
good stuff there. But it's
yeah.
like I saw Robert Jordan's Wheel of Time; they were trying to do animated, and I think that hopefully with the arcane writers and stuff, I
Oh
hope that
yeah,
that's
yeah,
gonna be killer. Like,
yeah.
when I saw that the other day,
They
I was
can't
like so
fail,
excited.
surely.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
the graphic novels were so good. I don't think a lot of people have read them from like the late '90s, early 2000s, but I highly recommend it to people. There were a
right.
lot of them, but yeah, they did amazing art and they did such a great job bringing the story to life. So I hope that whoever does it actually goes towards those as well as the
Yeah,
books because I think that was a
yeah,
really good visual adaptation. But yeah,
yeah.
that's super cool.
Right.
Well, I love that you created your own sandbox though. That's like just like so cool.
Yeah,
It's
there's
neat.
so many ideas, and I struggle to not understand what to do with the ideas. I mean, as a writer, the biggest thing I get out of it is I got an outlet for this stuff that constantly happens.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
almost like it's just a health thing. I need to put this somewhere, so I
yeah, yeah.
needed to create the dump boxes so I could put all the ideas somewhere because if they just float around, there's some kind of anxiety about where do I put this
No,
stuff?
yeah, yeah. No, it's totally true. You have me thinking, yeah, should I? There's a couple other things I want to do, and I'm like, oh, could that fit in that type of thing, or can I fit
Yeah,
it somewhere else? Like, I love cryptozoology. I actually wanted to be a cryptozoologist for a long time
yeah,
and find Bigfoot or Nessie or something like that, or maybe some of the more obscure ones. So I put that all that knowledge that I've gained over decades and
yeah,
put it in urban fantasy, and that's like some of the things my monster hunter will hunt or interact with
yeah.
or whatever. I thought I did some cool world building stuff, but I would still like to. There was some early books that I read for some young adult, before young adult was even like really a thing when I was younger. But like
Mm,
where you had people that did stuff like that, and it was kind of almost like the TV show Supernatural, but
yeah,
like there was like an ongoing book series. So it was like a brother and sister, and they would like go do all sorts of stuff like that. So I've always loved things like that. So maybe that's how I do a young
yeah.
adult or those kind of things. So that's awesome.
Nice.
You got me thinking. That's really cool. Maybe my sandbox isn't big enough. Maybe I need
Yeah,
two. That's
yeah, yeah.
awesome.
You can have as many as you like.
Yeah,
You're
yeah,
in
yeah.
charge.
That's fair. All right. Well, now we're going to talk about your new short story, Red Reckoning. Do you mind telling us what that's about and how it fits into the Callus and Crow universe?
Okay, so I mean, it's an interactive story, so the story does change quite considerably with the reader, which is what one of the reasons it was such a challenge, but so
Mhm.
enjoyable, was that you kind of I had to write a story, and the agency doesn't necessarily come from the character; it comes from the choices that the reader makes. Absolutely loved this process, but it was quite intense.
Yeah.
So the actual story that I'm talking about does mold and change, but generally it's a direct prequel to Callus and Crow.
That's cool.
So literally, like I mean, I'm a big Star Wars fan. The way that Rogue One finishes and then Star Wars starts, A New Hope,
Yeah.
is basically that. It's like
That's
it's an
awesome.
introduction to Callus, the one of the two main characters, and as that finishes, you start Callus and Crow. Or ideally, if you enjoyed it, you go and buy Callus and Crow. Because, yeah, you can read Callus and Crow without that backstory, but I think it will enrich your experience of that character.
Mm. Oh, that's
And you
cool.
get to pull the puppet strings a little bit and decide what he does.
That's awesome. Should we explain what choose your own adventure means? If some of my students are watching.
Maybe it's, yeah. Okay, so,
Somebody
so,
said that to me the other day. I was like, what? I was like, wow.
saying, yeah. So the story will be presented to you, and at the end of each section of story, you will get to make a choice where it goes next. So, in terms of in some types, some of the choices are: does the character go left or go right? You choose, and the story unfolds. Sometimes it's more about what you want the story to emphasize to you.
Mhm.
So the character is going left, but does the character look at the walls as he walks down the corridor, or does he dream about the past as he's walking down the corridor? So not every choice changes the direction of the story, but it changes how the story is delivered to the reader.
That's
I think
cool.
that's about as good a pitch as I
No,
can
I
tell.
actually think you explained that really well. I always get stuck. There was like this one that like you're in the South Pacific essentially. You're going on vacation and your plane gets like knocked down by like these terrorists, and then like because I was like always into martial arts, I was like, oh yeah, and the character was like a martial artist, so I was like, oh, I would do this, this, or this. And it was the one I could never. I loved him. It was like the one I could never get through, no matter what decision I
Yeah,
chose.
yeah,
So I thought it was so interesting that now they're making a comeback. But I used to. My mom's like, she used to love those. I'm like, yeah, that was the one
yeah,
that ruined it for me because I could not
yeah.
figure it out, no
That one,
matter what I
yeah,
chose. But
yeah.
how did you go about writing this though? Like, did you have like maybe like four or five? I know people go about it all differently, but did you have like maybe like four or five plots that you were going to kind of stick to, and then intermix them depending on what's going on? Like, how did you go about that process? It sounds really interesting.
So the fine people at Prowess Games, they basically delivered a template of how
Oh,
they
that's cool.
need the story to be, so they can code it into an app. So there was already a sort of skeleton of how to
Hmm,
present your story to them.
interesting.
Um, but it needs to be quite fast-paced choices. So it's not like you read 10 pages and then you make a choice. It's like you read two paragraphs and then you make a choice.
Oh,
So
cool.
it was very much like, right, here's the story, but it's got to have different endings, so different end results, but also it's got to weave to find its way to that end point.
Oh, that's
So
cool.
some choices have more impact than others, but they're
Mm,
all choices that get played out. So the challenge of that is to write a story where, as an example, like your main character leaves the light on and then goes outside and goes for a walk in the woods. You've got to remember that that light is on for, several pages in the future. So when they return, the light is on, and you've got to sort of track all that. And like I say, it's a really intense, challenging sort of project, but it was so good as well, and so good for my craft because I really had to know exactly what I was doing and why I was
Yeah,
doing it. So why
yeah.
is this character? Why are the options there for that character? What does that mean? Is the player going to enjoy choosing that, or is
Mm.
it obvious that I'm leaning towards the other choice? Like, you've got to try and step back and not push anyone to choose anything, but also let this stranger just go with your story and your baby. And
Oh,
it's
that's
quite,
cool.
yeah, challenging.
Yeah, yeah, I could imagine. Yeah, I was like when I first saw that, I was like, "Oh man, like that's really interesting." And then yeah, I was going back to all these experiences I had as a reader, and I was like, "Wait a minute, like writing that would be very interesting."
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't think I'd be good at it right off the bat. I would need like that type of template that you were like
yeah,
talking
yeah,
about. But I like
yeah,
that though that they're making a comeback though. I think that that's so cool.
yeah,
I just read an article about that. I saw somebody had a Kickstarter that had popped up. I think it was literally like maybe before like Thanksgiving here in the United States,
mm,
and but it was really interesting because it was kind of like that dead zone after that, right before the holidays and like
yeah,
Black Friday, sometimes Black Market, right, depending on who you are, sales and things like that. Were but it was
yeah,
like interesting. I was like, this was like it just like got flagged in my memory because I thought back to the ones I did. So I do think it's
yeah,
interesting, and I did see an article, yeah, where they're kind of making a comeback again. So it kind of
yeah,
makes me think
absolutely.
like, what else would make a comeback?
And
You know,
now,
like
now technology is what it is. You can do a lot more than kind of,
yeah,
yeah. I mean, obviously, everyone loves a book in the hand, but I read a lot of Kindle stuff. I listen to
yep,
audiobooks because it fits with my life and it means I can do it. Can't
yeah,
always
yeah, yeah.
carry around a massive hardback. So I'm
It's
not
the
saying
hardest
that
thing for
you
me
don't.
now.
Yeah, it's tough, and it's not that I'm ever going to fall out of love with books,
Yeah,
but there's new things that can happen now with technology. As long as we don't
yeah,
step into too much AI, which I'm sure we agree is not the way.
yeah,
But
yep,
yeah, as an app, you can sit, you can have 10 minutes when you're on a break at work or whatever, and just go on a little journey with a character that you already know. Even if you've already read the story, you can go on a different route and kind of just
yeah.
sit in there in the world a little bit. And for me,
Uh-huh.
that's what I love about reading is that I'll be going about my daily tasks and I'll be going to work, but in the back of my mind, I'm in this planet, this frozen planet somewhere, and I love being in that world, and that's the biggest thing for me. So if you can kind of shape that world as well at the same time, it's just a double win.
Yeah, that's fair. That's like my wife. Like she's been home from work for a little while, and she was like, "I'm so bored." I was like, "I would never be bored," because I would just write. Or she had a concussion, so yeah. So it's like hard. It was hard for me to write, right, when I had mine several years ago. But that's why I discovered like I just did audio notes. And
Yeah.
then eventually my friend was like, "Hey, you can just do this into Word and stuff." And then the technology started to pick up, or like Google Docs and stuff. So
Yeah.
yeah, I was like, all right. Like there were times where I made her write for me. At the time, I was like, I have this idea, I can't actually do it. Yeah. So I was like, yeah, I'm like always right. You're always with your characters, or in a
Yeah.
different world, or trying to
Definitely.
lay the foundation for something. So yeah,
Yeah.
being an author and a writer is definitely a creative is definitely a different type of
Yeah.
being alone. You're never really alone, right?
No, no. You've got all your friends in your head just clamoring for attention.
Yep, yep, yep,
Yeah.
yep. Hey, Dan, right about me now. Yeah, that's totally true. All right. Well, I know we're winding down on time. I wanted to make sure we can ask you this question because somebody gave this to me a while back, and I thought it was really cool. So I've changed it a bunch of different ways. If you can meet one of your characters, who would it be and why?
um
Pick your favorite child.
yeah. Yeah. I guess there's a character in Callus and Crow called Lazarus Badstock, who is an old guy, an ex-military sniper, um, who's kind of bordering on dementia. He's an old. He's pretty. He has more lucid times than others. Sometimes he just has what he describes as the fog, and he kind of doesn't remember a thing. But in the Wayward World Chronicles, there's a kind of insidious thing that's never it's not quite been explained yet, but there's a reality thing going on, and this character dips in and out of existence. So he's kind of like a dysfunctional wizard character that pops up with, like a deep south bit of wisdom for the main characters. He smokes
That's cool.
human hair. He's like I don't know if you know Rob Zombie. He's like a
Uh,
Rob Zombie character who
that's
dips
funny.
into existence, smoking human hair, gives you some advice, but vanishes again. He's
Oh, that's
kind
awesome.
of, in a very sort of loose way, he's based on the dungeon master in the old D&D cartoon.
Oh, that's cool. That's
Like he just,
awesome.
just appears and goes,
Yeah.
"Oh, what you need to do is X, Y, and Z," and then he's gone again. He's kind of like that, but he's this grizzled old human hair smoking sniper guy who's just a lot of fun to write and to
That's
hopefully to
awesome.
read. Yeah, to meet him, I'm sure I'd learn something, and it would be an experience.
Oh, that's awesome. It's so funny that you say that because, like, yeah, like with the D&D, like the narrator, like we're doing board games in my history class, and we're combining like art elements with the art teacher. So they're like making their own board games. And one
Yeah,
of the crew, they wanted Morgan Freeman and these people to fall from the Oscars into this portal, and it goes in this fantasy world. And they're like, we're
nice.
like portal fans. I'm like, cool. And one of the kids mentioned that narrator, and he goes, I want Morgan Freeman to be this narrator. So Morgan Freeman,
Yeah.
the actor, gets stuck in this world, and then now he's
Oh,
like telling
amazing.
the
Yeah,
players
I
like what
love
to
it.
do.
I
So
love it.
I'll have
I
to
love
tell
it
him
when
you
you got
said that
that.
on Tuesday. That's so funny. Yeah, the fact this like 13-year-old kid even knew that, I was like, I'm
Yeah,
impressed with your D&D knowledge.
yeah,
Like,
nice.
I was like, I'm sure Morgan Freeman would love to play that character.
He
Either one,
probably
right?
would.
Like,
Yeah, yeah. He'd be
yeah,
like,
super awesome.
cancel all jobs, ringing his agent, cancel it all.
If
Yeah,
anybody knows anybody, hook DB up, okay? Uh,
yeah.
that's super cool. Well, I definitely want to have time for this last question for you because I know you got stuff going on. But do you have any news, updates, current projects, anything like that you can share with us today?
Yes. So I do have a very, I mean, I say imminent release. I'm very slow to release, but definitely in the first half of this year, the next Wayward World Chronicles book will
Cool.
be out, and I'm absolutely loving writing it, and hopefully people will
Awesome.
enjoy reading it. I mean, Callous and Crow is not a book I look at and feel sort of, you meet a lot of authors who are like, "Oh, cringing at my first book, it's awful,
Oh,
it's the
yeah, yeah.
first thing I put out," and I don't feel like that in any way. I still love it, and I still, if I'm reading bits to kind of refresh my memory about certain characters or certain concepts, I always end up reading more than I need to because I fall into it, and,
That's
I, and
awesome.
I really love it. But it's been a few years since it came out. I've learned a lot. I've learned the craft. I've read a lot. I've met a lot of other authors, and it's just infinitely better in every way. I've also took a lot of feedback from Callus and Crow, and not
Cool.
blindly, tried to please
Yeah,
everyone,
yeah, yeah.
but you take the feedback and you decide what to do with it. So there's certain maybe slightly jagged corners that I've taken off the process for the next book.
Mhm.
It is it's what I've been describing as a throughquel. so the next book, the story starts before Callus and Crow. It
Oh,
goes
cool.
through the events of Callus and Crow and comes out the other side.
Oh, it's cool.
So just can't wait. So there's many ingredients that are in Callus and Crow. There's just as many in the next one, but hopefully in a smoother way. So it's just going to be awesome, and I really can't wait to sort of show where that story is going.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, that's super cool. I always love when people do that kind of thing with timelines. I got a podcast years ago I listened to, and it was so interesting. I read the book one, and then the person had another trilogy that was mirroring, and sometimes you would like see it's kind of like Luke, right? Like there was one book where I read where like Luke Skywalker is in the Death Star and he's shooting, right? They're going to the Millennium Falcon, but then there's another character in another book that's like seeing him do that. I think it's like
Yeah,
Kirkanis or something like that, one of the Royal Guards or something. It's like
yeah,
somebody,
yeah,
and like it's so. I was like, oh, that's so cool.
yeah,
So to see people do different things like that,
yeah.
or in like the same book even or series or world, I think it's super cool. Gives people really good ideas. I think.
Yeah, excellent. The problem there was, we talked about sort of writer's block and scene block earlier. So I had a huge problem with this book halfway through when the events, the plot hit the plot from the first book directly. So there was a crossroads where I was writing the same scene again, but from a different point of view.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And it really messed my head up. And I was like, oh my God, I'm just writing Callus and Crow again. What am I doing? And it really blocked me for ages until I
Yeah,
figured
yeah,
out how to sort of move beyond this kind of crossroads. And as
yeah.
soon as I did, it was flowing again, and it was amazing. But
That's cool.
yeah, it's going to
Totally
be
different muscle though, right? Like,
yeah, yeah,
yeah,
and
yeah,
and more akin to like I would never write historical fiction because I'm not that academic, and I don't. I do obviously do research, but I don't want to research to that level of people will pick it apart and it's the wrong
yeah, yeah.
timeline and it's the wrong armor for the wrong year and all that stuff. I don't like that kind of thing. I like to
They
create my
shoot
own
instead of
stuff.
fire,
Yeah,
or
yeah,
fire instead of, yeah,
yeah,
fire instead of
exactly.
shooting.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
release there. Yeah.
what essentially happened was for that scene, I was suddenly writing historical fiction because I'd already written the book
Oh, it's
that
funny.
pertained
Oh
to.
yeah, yeah,
And it was like, oh God, this is my own
yeah.
law that I've got to get so right. And I didn't like it. But I got there and I moved on, and it's very nearly finished, and it's looking good.
Oh, that's super cool. Well, I look forward to that. That's really awesome. Well, thank you so much, DB, for coming on. I really appreciate it. And this has been great to, really get this in-depth look. I had bumped up Calcium Crow a couple weeks ago, and my friend was like,
Right.
"What the hell are you doing?" I was like, "I just got distracted from writing, and I haven't read a lot, so I bumped it up further after my
Right.
arcs. So I can't wait. But this was a great reminder. But yeah, I look forward to, you know, I mean, I grabbed everything of yours actually, so I look forward
No,
to
thank you.
getting
Thank
through the
you very
rest of
much.
those things too, and seeing, really like just like how you do things. I love getting this ahead of time. It just, I don't know how to explain to people. I just recommend if you're a podcaster, because it's really like getting the director's cut. And then
Yeah.
when I go in, I just see things differently. I don't know how else to
Yeah.
explain it. And
Yeah.
I just get more as a reader and a writer. And it's almost like I read the book twice, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so it's
Yeah.
always super, super cool
Like
experience.
like
But
you've
thank
seen
you.
the deleted scenes before you
Yeah, yes,
like
thank
yeah.
you. Thank you. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And then you like, yeah, like sometimes you see connections a little bit differently. You kind of see the
Mm,
wires, right?
yeah.
Behind the panel, so to speak. And yeah, I don't know, it just always gives me a better experience overall. But yeah, I
Right.
look forward to it. Yeah, and once I get Kelson Crow read, I'm doing video interviews for everything. I actually got to film one later on today for an arc that my friend Ben Shankman sent me for My Brother's Keeper. But yeah, I look forward to. I'm almost done with this season, and then I'm getting caught up on all the reviews. I got a ton of videos to do. But once I get it done, I will send it to you, tag you, and
Amazing.
try and share it as much as possible. But if anything else you need in the meantime, just let me know, and we'll get the information out there for you.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Perfect, not a
Thank you
problem.
for the invite. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Awesome. And just want to remind our audience too, you can find DB's links down in the description anywhere where you're watching or listening to this podcast. Please don't forget to check out his books, and his products. But we want to make sure we're continuously trying to review those products as well, whether they're on Audible, Kindle. If you pick up a paperback at Barnes and Noble, they do allow you to do that. Actually, you can go back on there and make sure you do that, give that review. Amazon, of course, those kind of things. So anything like that really helps anybody, whether they're indie or traditionally published, or some of our other creators we've had on too, audio narrators, artists, that kind of thing. So if you guys can continue to do that as an audience, really appreciate it. DB, hope you have a great rest of the day, my friend. Good luck with everything. I look forward to talking to you soon.
Yeah, let's do it again.
Yeah, sounds good. Awesome.
Thank you,
See ya.
Take care.